Welcome to Zero Knowledge. I'm your host, Anna Rose. In this podcast, we will be exploring the latest in zero-knowledge research and the decentralized web, as well as new paradigms that promise to change the way we interact and transact online. This week, I chat with Zaki Manian about the Cosmos ecosystem, and I ask the question, is Cosmos dead? We run through the key events in Cosmos history and map the teams and players who worked on the project during different eras. We tease out the strengths of Cosmos, but also the structural flaws that have led it to be in the state it is today. There is a key distinction, and one that I hope comes through during this episode, between the Cosmos Hub and the Cosmos Dream. And one may be faltering, but I think you can tell by the end of this, the other is unlikely to ever die. We wrap up with a chat about some of the initiatives in place to try and revive the ecosystem and bring different factions in Cosmos together towards the central goal. Now, before we kick off, I want to point you towards the ZK jobs board. There you can find job opportunities to work with top teams in ZK. I also want to encourage teams looking for top talent to post your jobs there as well. We've been hearing from more and more teams that they have found excellent talent through this jobs board. So be sure to check out the ZK jobs board. We've added the link in the show notes. Also, a quick reminder, our biannual ZK Summit event is hosting its 12th edition in Lisbon on October 8th. Our one-day ZK-focused event is where you can learn about cutting-edge research, new ZK paradigms and products, and the math and cryptographic techniques that are giving us epic efficiency gains in the realm of ZK. The early bird tickets are sold out, but we still have general tickets for sale over at zksummit.com. I've added the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Now, Tanya will share a little bit about this week's sponsors.
Today's episode is sponsored by Anoma. Intents are a new way to build dApps based on user-defined outcomes instead of virtual machine transactions. Anoma is making an intent-centric future possible by introducing a distributed intent-centric operating system. This will enable builders to create user-friendly dApps compatible with any blockchain. Use Anoma to add intents to existing dApps, or build on Anoma and settle wherever your users are. Anoma aims to vastly improve blockchain user experience, enable novel applications, and promote a more human-centric future for decentralized technology. Get ready to build with intention. Anoma is the universal intent machine, introducing a new era of applications where you define the outcomes you want. Follow Anoma on X to learn more at x.com/Anoma. So thanks again, Anoma. Aleo is a new Layer 1 blockchain that achieves the programmability of Ethereum, the privacy of Zcash, and the scalability of a rollup. Driven by a mission for a truly secure internet, Aleo has interwoven zero-knowledge proofs into every facet of their stack, resulting in a vertically integrated Layer 1 blockchain that's unparalleled in its approach. Aleo is ZK by design. Dive into their programming language Leo and see what permissionless development looks like, offering boundless opportunities for developers and innovators to build ZK apps. This is an invitation to be part of a transformational ZK journey. Dive deeper and discover more about Aleo at aleo.org. And now, here's our episode.
Today, I'm here with Zaki, co-founder of Sommelier and a long-standing member of the Cosmos ecosystem. Welcome back to the show, Zaki.
It's great to be here.
For today's episode, we return to the topic of Cosmos, and I want to do a catch-up. Last time you were on was February 2023, and I think we were talking about like Atom 2.0 and what was hopefully coming for Cosmos. I want to do a brief look back at the history of Cosmos, but I really want to understand if, as many are saying online, Cosmos is now dead. I'm not doing a big intro to you because you have actually been on the show many times, but I think over the years, I've very much considered you one of the main champions of Cosmos. And I think your influence has been really widespread. You are kind of legendary for having advised like most of the main projects in Cosmos. So I feel like you're the right person to talk to about the state of this ecosystem.
Well, I've been part of the ecosystem in many ways since like 2014.
Whoa.
Cosmos is a very, very old project.
Okay.
And I think it's often forgot about because most people encountered it in 2019 or 2021 during the Terra era. These were the touch points. for different people, but I've been at this idea of interoperable blockchains, of proof of stake, of all of these things for a decade.
Wow.
And it does feel like we're at another inflection point. So it's a good time to catch up.
Let's do a quick mapping or sketch of like the key dates in Cosmos. So launch of the network, 2019.
Yes.
Like what actually launched then? Was that like a full validator set?
Yeah. So it was the Atom Hub.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was this event called Game of Stakes, which was the first incentivized testnet, which the team executed, and just sort of I led that process and like sort of unleashed the incentivized testnet monster upon the world.
Which we've seen ever since.
Yeah. So, all of these incentivized testnets that airdrop hunters are, and we never promised anyone anything, but we ended up doing like a reward for the participants that was baked into Genesis. And so the validator set got, there was a release of software, the validator set got together, they launched a network. And so Atom was born. And what was probably notable was Atom was like the first proof of stake network that got widely integrated both on the staking side by major centralized exchanges.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of the big story of 2019 was kind of this process of different exchanges onboarding Atom and wallets and all of these different players onboarding Atom as, okay, this is an asset you can earn yield on. And that was kind of a pretty new concept in the centralized exchange world.
Was there already a POS live? Was Tezos live?
Tezos was live.
Okay. So it wasn't the first, but it was like in the first 5 or something.
Yeah. I mean, Tezos had all of its struggles, right? All of the drama that happened with their foundation and everything. And so Atom was able to execute a very strong go-to-market. The token was pretty widely listed. We, had a policy of not really engaging with centralized exchanges, but nevertheless, the demand for the token was very strong. So lots of exchanges listed us. Then this whole process of staking integrations, Coinbase made it, I'm pretty sure, their first staking integration. So that was like a pretty big factor. Yeah. And so like this like very decentralized community of validators were operating the network.
But at the time, it was just the hub. So Cosmos literally consisted of like one chain, no connections. It was only like that first part of the vision.
Yeah.
Were there any other Cosmos chains at the time?
Yeah. So I guess at the time, so first and foremost, there was this other chain called Iris.
Oh, yeah.
Which is mostly forgotten at this point.
Yeah.
But that chain launched. At the same time, Matic, which became Polygon, was also live running.
They started as a Tendermint chain?
There's still a Tendermint chain today.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. That's funny.
And then BNB chain also launched very soon.
The Binance chain, yeah.
You find the Tendermint code kind of everywhere because it is this sort of very well understood implementation of a BFT consensus algorithm, and it is very stable.
Although, but just going back though, 2019, you're not seeing the full vision of Cosmos.
No.
It's just like Cosmos itself, the Atom was just a standalone chain.
Yeah.
All it did was allow for transfer and validation, basically, staking.
I mean, and so like what was going on behind the scenes very much though, before launch, everyone was focused on one thing. Then we launched, then we have this asset. This asset is worth billions of dollars, even just in the early days. And there was always a lot of conflict in the team.
Okay.
There was always a lot of different visions. There was always, you had this incredible pool of talent that was working together. Jay, Ethan, Sonny, Chris Goes, me, Jack Zamplin. Like you had this pool of talent that have all gone on to build lots of things. And so this incredible pool of talent, but they were all pulling in different directions. And it was like keeping them all aligned, but really, a huge tax on Cosmos from the beginning was there was not a lot of alignment.
The company at the time was All in Bits.
Yes.
But was the ICF already formed?
ICF existed.
Okay.
ICF. So by the time of launch, we were sort of in this state where Jay was running All in Bits. I was at All in Bits, and Ethan was running the foundation notionally, and then he was building a team there. And then over the course of 2019, Ethan left being operationally in charge of the foundation, started informal systems. The fragmentation of Cosmos contributors was already baked in, and it was like a thing that we were trying to manage. But there were all of these people, like the people who were drawn to build Cosmos were the people who's like, yeah, I don't have to do what anyone else says. Like, it was not like we are all going to work for Atom.
Wow.
It was always like, I can build, like, I want this thing to exist so I can build my own thing.
Okay. 2020, early 2020. I remember seeing you, this is just before COVID, SBC, and all this crazy I think you weren't there anymore. You'd left All in Bits.
I'd resigned from All in Bits, publicly called out Jay.
There was a moment where it really looked like this ecosystem is imploding.
Yeah, it really did. So basically, most of the team then left All in Bits, started their own, many of them started their own entities. A big chunk of people then started working directly for the Interchain Foundation.
There was also Interchain GmbH.
Yeah.
Different org, right?
It's a corporation.
Okay.
Which has an extremely weird structure. But it is a German company that is owned by the ICF.
Oh, so it is in the same umbrella.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as independent.
But it always, so there was a Berlin office for All in Bits. And that Berlin office all resigned. And they resigned and they like went under the Interchain Foundation, but with like their own, with a considerable amount of independence. What was clearly lacking was a leadership team at that entity.
Okay. But the Interchain GmbH, that was the team that eventually shipped IBC, right?
It did ship IBC.
What happened to All in Bits around this time?
So All in Bits went through like a couple of iterations. So there was like the immediate post-crisis intervention. Then this early contributor named Peng took over as CEO, and Jay stayed on the board but left. Still had the majority shareholder like control of the entity, but Peng. So then there was the Peng era. This was pre-IBC. So there's and in this era, there was an attempt for everyone to work together.
Okay.
So like I had left, I was just working basically for, under my validator entity, Occlusion, and doing my own thing. The advisory business started to expand. So invest, advise business started to expand, but, mostly working on shipping IBC. We did a whole episode about this, but one of the things that was really painful was all of these centralized exchange had integrated Atom. And then as part of shipping IBC, we were making substantial changes to the code base. The other thing that happened is there was this team called Regen, which has a chain that is like, again, not super famous, but, exists within the Cosmos. They actually took over as maintainers of the Cosmos SDK. And so now you had the patterns that I think have been problematic for Cosmos get sort of cemented in this era, which is all of the core contributors have their own projects. Yeah. All of their own core contributors have their own teams. There are a variety of different teams. No one has any value alignment or like alignment around Atom. Like very few people are contributing, own Atoms, have Atoms. Some of us do. Like I have a bunch of Atoms from like the early fundraiser days and stuff like that. But like, again, no alignment around an asset. And like most entities are kind of ad hoc groups of people who kind of are like, okay, like we have to figure this out before we miss a payroll cycle. Like, let's just like put an entity together.
Whoa. This is the lead up though to the Stargate upgrade.
Yeah.
And that actually, I did an episode. All of these I'm going to add to the show notes, but this one was, I think I interviewed 3 different people to talk about this Stargate upgrade.
Yeah.
That was the launch of IBC.
Yes.
This happened in 2021.
Yes.
So you made it through. Like, despite this fragmentation, it got there.
Yeah. Despite all of this, we shipped IBC.
Was Terra already alive before?
Terra was alive.
IBC. Okay. What was it doing itself? Was it just a standalone thing?
Terra had been pitched as a payment rail.
Okay.
In South Korea. Then they had pivoted to doing DeFi.
But as a standalone chain, which was kind of unusual at the time.
Yeah. And they had partnered with Wormhole, which is a bridge network, also early Cosmos people, to connect themselves to a bunch of other chains in like a early pre-IBC system.
Was like Atom in Terra then? Like
No.
there was no bridge of Atom into Terra. Okay.
There was no relationship. And Terra like did not care about Atom and could have cared less.
Yeah.
But they ended up eventually. So then I think it was May or June of 2021, Osmosis launched.
Yes.
So Sunny and Dave launch Osmosis. And then Terra decides to enable IBC.
Ah.
So like Osmosis launches, and there's not really anything to do on Osmo except
Trade Osmo for Atom.
trade Osmo
and move stuff over IBC, which is cool.
Yeah. But then Terra launches, and we get this massive injection of liquidity into the ecosystem as like Terra has this like massive fan base, massive user base. And like a huge advantage for Terra was that Atom was widely available on many centralized exchanges.
So was that the link into Terra? Is that how people got Terra?
Yeah, so that was a big part of how people got
That was the on-ramp.
Like you could buy Atom, buy Luna, buy UST on Osmosis.
So that opened the can of worms. But before it got sour, there was this moment of like incredible growth. Like you'd see new chains launching like weekly, got like lots of airdrops.
Yeah.
It's funny because like the airdrop hunting era, I think for a lot of people is more the 2023 era. But I remember beginning of 2022 or late 2021, early 2022, Cosmos chains. Cosmos had many Cosmos chains.
Cosmos
launching.
had airdrops before anyone else. Airdrops were very easy to execute within the code. We kind of baked that in. We also baked in this idea of you just would have a token. You basically launch an idea. Okay, and you have a token.
And there is a massive graveyard of all of those chains too. Like most of them didn't work. Some of them worked for a little while. Like Juno.
But it's been a disaster. Like like just like I mean you basically all of these tokens are down.
Yeah. Or dead.
Are down.
Or fully gone.
Or fully gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's only, I mean, of that time, what launched? Stargaze, still around.
Stargaze is still around.
Juno? I don't even know. Is that still around?
Juno was around that time. It still exists.
Oh, it still exists. What
Sommelier.
else? Sommelier.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Agoric.
Agoric was around that time. And then there was a lot of random. I actually don't remember their names even.
So many. So much.
Wow. Gravity Bridge.
Gravity. Lum. Just like all kinds of things. So like we had this Cosmoverse at the end of 2021. And
that was so fun. This was in Lisbon. Yeah,
that was like, kind of like, I have a house here. I like spend a bunch of time living in Lisbon now. That was my first introduction to Lisbon. Like
that was such a special month. That was also like pretty early after COVID era.
Yeah.
So like, and I remember it was the Cosmoverse. I think it was first Cosmoverse.
There was
I don't know
Near,
which came
Cosmoverse,
first.
and Breakpoint.
No, but there was an Ethereum thing too.
There was ETH Lisbon too.
And there was LizCon.
Yeah.
There was so much. It was actually like a full month, maybe even 6 weeks, where every single week a different ecosystem came to town. It was very cool.
So that was 2021. And like basically a lot of the next couple of years of Cosmos kind of got sketched out then. Basically, it was the first time that teams were meeting face-to-face post-IBC. And people starting to figure out, how will this IBC thing actually work? What are our relationships with each other? Like, what is the business-to-business community of Cosmos look like? We have all these sovereign chains, and they're all sending, all trading on Osmosis and everything. But like, what is this actually? How does this all fit together? That was November 2021. So we were all trying to make sense of this stuff.
Yeah.
We all had a very difficult relationship with Terra.
Okay.
It
was fueling a lot of the
Terra
growth.
was fueling everything.
Okay. Because people were buying Atom on exchanges to get into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So once they'd be having the Atom, maybe they'd hold a bit of the Atom or they'd put it into other projects. Most of it, though, was going towards Terra because the reason were like they would offer, 20%
APY on Anchor.
and it was like pretty consistent, unlike a lot of the other things like Yearn, where you'd have like really high APY and then it would drop.
Yeah, it was just all
Terra
artificially sustained by their, by this like sort of leverage that doesn't look like leverage that was built into the instability of the UST mechanism in Luna and like all of these bailout. So there's all this drama, right? Like, you know, a lot of us didn't trust we looked at the UST mechanism. We were like, this is unsound. Like this thing has a huge death spiral risk. But, you know, it was also it was the thing that was breathing life into the ecosystem. We all were starved for resources to build any of the things that were needed, to build wallets, to build block explorers, to build everything. And so we were all also trying to get resources from them.
It's interesting, like IBC launching at that time. So far, there's never been like a big bug in IBC, has there?
No, there's been a big bug in IBC.
Oh, there has been?
Yeah. So why don't we get to that point of the story? So
Wait, what year? Is that pre-Luna?
Post-Luna.
So let's do Luna quick.
Yeah.
So Luna crash is May 2022.
Yeah.
It sets off all of the crashes. It's the first, I think, right? It's the first thing that destabilizes everything.
Yep. $60 billion gone.
Yeah. And actually, I want to really highlight this episode we did in 2023 because you go into a lot of detail in that one on like the play-by-play of Luna crashing. For this episode, I just want to kind of briefly say, like, what did it do in the immediate aftermath?
So in the immediate aftermath, like, liquidity in Cosmos collapsed.
Yeah.
Just catastrophically. Like,
it was just gone. It wasn't even like people exited. Like, it was all in Luna and then it was zero.
Yeah. And it was just like...
Did anyone get anything out? Like, was there an attempt? Like, did anyone like settle into Atom?
Yeah.
Did they get into Atom and just stay there? Or did everyone like move out whenever they could?
Most people, it happened too fast.
Whoa. Just wiped out.
So, yeah. So the ecosystem, I mean, like, and the ecosystem has never economically recovered. But like, also, like, we now no longer had a stable coin. DeFi in the ecosystem became essentially non-existent. We were really... Like the whole ecosystem, like there was just, because like basically what was the ecosystem at the time was there were a bunch of chains, but it was like there was Atom, which was like this token that didn't really do much, but it was listed in exchanges everywhere and you could stake it. There was Osmosis, where you could do like Uniswap style trading. And there was Terra, which had like the stablecoin and Anchor, but then like a bunch of other stuff, like apps launching and stuff like that. There was like a lot of activity. And so, like, you know, once Terra was gone, that whole structure just was destabilized.
Wow. So this destabilization, and it's not, I mean, the Cosmos hit was early and hardcore and fast, but the rest of the market gets hit over and over and over again by other things.
Yeah, then FTX happens.
But there's also like bridge hacks and culminating in FTX.
Yeah.
The final pin that just let it all crash down. Cosmos during that time, did it experience actually the same level of crashing as the rest of the market after that initial Luna thing?
Yeah.
It continued to feel rough.
Just rough.
I speak about this like I'm not in it. Like we have a validator. We for a long time were very high on the validator set, so we are also obviously seeing this happen. But it's funny to map it out. So near the end of 2022, there is a new proposal that comes about.
Okay, so
let's talk a bit about the fragmentation at this point. Like, who are the players at the end of 2022 after the Luna crash?
So Luna is gone. Luna is gone and the refugees have not really coordinated into anything.
Yeah.
That will come later. You know, the builders in the Luna ecosystem, some of them came over and wanted to build stuff in Cosmos, but very little had launched.
Okay.
So it was really like there was Osmosis, there was Informal Systems, there was Occlusion, Zaki, there was Jack with Strangelove, there was the Interchain GmbH team, there was the Interchain Foundation.
There was Binary Holdings.
Binary Holdings didn't really become a player until later.
Okay. They had been a validator.
Yeah.
But okay, I thought that they were already.
So we had Regen.
Okay. So what happened? Is All in Bits not even a...
So at this point, then in 2022, Jay came back, fired...
This is at the end.
This was like post-Luna collapse.
Post-Luna, but pre-Atom 2.0.
Pre-Atom 2.0.
Okay.
Jay comes back during the summer.
Okay.
Jay tends to be more active during the summer.
Okay.
He has this weird seasonality to his behavior. And so he tends to be more active during the summer. So he comes back during the summer. Another round of people getting fired from All in Bits happens. another round of like Pung leaves. There's like a whole nother round of drama. But it's like very self-contained because like the rest of us are off dealing with Terra collapsing.
Okay.
But like there still is like an energy. There's an energy.
Despite all of the collapsing, I guess there is this hope that because there was some really interesting building happening in Terra, it had attracted not only money but also talent.
Yep.
And those folks still understood Tendermint, at least. So, like,
they understood CosmWasm, which is our
Yeah.
smart contract. We had a lot of people who had been building with CosmWasm, and there's like CosmWasm has been weirdly sticky. Like developers who got exposed to it, like don't want to leave, so they keep looking for places to build. Yeah, that's been like weirdly sticky. CosmWasm as a smart contract language. It was like this niche smart contract language it was never really like organized that like Cosmos would have its official smart contract language be CosmWasm. There was a hackathon project, and then some of the devs from that hackathon project kept building it.
Wow.
And it was kind of not going anywhere. Then Terra adopted it without really asking them. They just adopted it. And suddenly this created an entire builder community around it. And that has like weirdly persisted.
Okay. But so like at that moment, late 2022, there is energy. There's a bunch of teams who seem to like still care.
Yeah.
There's a sense of like, we've had a rough year, but can we turn it around?
But also, October 2022, we find a massive bug in IBC.
Oh, that's the bug. And that's IBC bug. See, I always thought it was a Cosmos hub.
No, it was a full drain everything,
Holy moly.
double spend, but we found it. So what had happened
This is Dragonberry?
This is called Dragonberry.
Okay.
And
who named that? The hacker?
No.
You found a bug.
So Dev from the Osmosis team. So what happened was Binance is a bridge between that they used for BNB, the asset, was based on Cosmos Tech. They literally used a bunch of code in Cosmos Tech that Jay had written for a hackathon.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And like
not CosmWasm, this is IBC
this
code or
this
something.
Was it's code in Tendermint.
Okay.
So they'd written their own bridge, not using any IBC tech.
Okay.
But using this like prototype of IBC that Jay wrote for a hackathon once. And the rest of us had like, I had looked at it and been like, I wouldn't use that code, but okay. Like, whatever, move on. So someone had hacked that bridge for like $50 million. And so like, I remember I was in New York. I was like walking down the street, going to meet Shane from Stargaze for Sri Lankan food. And I'm like scrolling Twitter as I always do. And I see Sam, CZ's son from Paradigm, tweeting about this Binance hack. And he's like halfway through it. And I'm like, and I realize that it was a vulnerability in like Cosmos related code.
Yeah.
So I call him and I'm like, you have to stop tweeting. I need to go figure out
if there's any effect. But why it wouldn't be though, right? Because if they're not using
so
IBC.
I hadn't like put all these pieces together. And so I'm just like, I like leave dinner with Shane and I'm like sitting on a stoop in the East Village in New York on GitHub on my phone, like tracing out the code. And I'm like, okay, IBC doesn't use this code. It's like Jay's weird hackathon code.
You're safe.
We're safe. But then we're like, as always happens, like half of the Cosmos devs that are like sort of core Cosmos devs are like on a plane while this is all going on. I couldn't get in touch with anyone, so I'm just like doing this by myself. So that happens, but then the next morning, everybody wakes up and we're like, well, all right, this is the bug was fairly exotic, fairly unique to our code base. We should go look and see if there's anything like this in IBC.
Okay.
And then that starts a 72-hour bug hunt that like a bunch of people contribute to. And we have a bunch of near misses. And then Dave finds like a full exploit.
Whoa.
I mean, it was the first of, and then, I don't want to spend the entire time doing the timeline, but like, because we got to talk about the philosophy of this thing. But anyways, we find the exploit. And then we start this frantic effort to get all of the networks patched. It was like one 72-hour Zoom call.
Whoa.
Where we like ran a war room and we would just call up the validators on different chains and we would be like, we would just patch people's code without telling them, call their validators, say it would be like Zaki and Ethan have told you, stop running injective. start running this variant of injective on pure trust.
Whoa.
And so we like ran around, we patched all of the Cosmos chains.
Yeah.
No funds were lost.
Why Dragonberry?
So at the time we were using fruit names.
Okay.
For
bugs?
For bugs.
Okay.
For security vulnerabilities, we were using, and like it seemed like a big
one.
The big one.
It's a weird one. It's exotic.
Yeah.
I guess
so we were like,
be.
It was like, but I think the experience created this, at least within me, the sense of crisis in the software development of Cosmos.
Ooh. You're saying, like, why was that allowed to continue? Like,
exactly.
Why didn't they find it?
Why, in the name of God, did this actually get through our software development process?
Had it been incorporated later, or was it a very old bug?
So the bug was in the original IBC implementation. It had been there from the beginning. But it showed a lack of capacity in our auditing process. Like, all of the things that I had been a part of, and the rigor in which we had built the Cosmos Hub, launched everything, it was just fragmenting because of the fact that you had it was no longer one team. It was like, well,
although it hadn't been for like 2 years at this point.
Yeah, and it's like one team is writing IBC, another team is auditing IBC. Different parts of the code are owned by different people. So it was like one team owned this part of the code, which was not even part of the core IBC team. There were just all of these, you had like this fragmentation of development, and it was like, clearly we have a problem.
Right around the same time, fall 2022, Atom 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it as a something to vote on in the hub. It was a signaling proposal. As far as I could understand, included in it was sort of like what ICS, this interchain security, would mean, but
so there had been this product for the Cosmos Hub that had been proposed in 2022, and then shipped till 2023, called this idea of interchain security.
ICS, yeah.
Yeah. And so actually the way Yelena, who's the CEO of Noble and co-founder of Noble, and I got close and started working together was I was helping her with go-to-market.
For ICS. Maybe just briefly, ICS is a bit of it's funny, I just did an episode recently on restaking, and it's a bit like...
It's the first restaking primitive.
Yeah, it also had a bit of an echo of Polkadot, with the hub being the center and then chains branching off it. Yeah.
So, and we had onboarded Neutron and Stride in 2022. Stride is a liquid staking token that had already existed as an app chain. We'd onboarded them. They were going to join. And Atom 2.0 was really an attempt. You could say it was basically an attempt to redo the ICO. I think if you want to ask what the question was.
Was it going to redistribute?
It was going to redistribute a mass amount of atoms.
Wow.
It was a huge restructuring proposal of a dramatic nature.
Wow.
And because if you wanted to get most of the core builders back on the same page, back aligned around Atom, back aligned around on one team, essentially, this is what it was going to take. And when Atom 2.0 failed, basically the fragmentation of the ecosystem accelerated.
And just a note, because the last episode that you came on to talk about this, at the time, Atom 2.0 had been voted
failed.
Down, but it was just a signaling proposal. But you sounded still pretty positive about it. Was there a sense even after the signaling didn't work that maybe it would still happen? People had voted, a lot of people had expressed, hey, we like parts of Atom 2.0, but we want a more incrementalist approach. DYDX had announced that they were building their Cosmos chain. I knew at the time, I don't know what was public at the time, I knew that USDC was coming. Oh, yeah.
I was bullish about the Celestial launch. It was February 2023, and public sentiment on Cosmos was pretty low post Atom 2.0. But I was there's
something coming.
There's a bunch of stuff coming that's exciting and is likely to have a positive impact.
So this is 2023, post Atom 2.0 failing. at the end of 2023, you have the DYDX and Celestia launches. But what's happening in the middle there? And who are the players the same as they were the year before? Is it still Osmosis, Informal, Iclusion, Strangelove, Regen?
Yelena had left Informal and started Noble.
Yeah.
Celestia had raised a lot of money in the bull market and had become more and more of a player in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
The modular narrative had really kind of hitting its stride.
Yeah. Because there was the first modular summit, actually, I think, in 2022?
2022 was the first modular summit. 23 was the big
one.
The big one
Yeah. That was the one I was at, actually. It was 2023. And so there was so much excitement.
Yep.
That was during ETHCC Paris. And that whole venue, everyone was like packing into it. It was so exciting. I forget sometimes that was pre-launch for Celestia. Yeah.
So, the L2 narrative was kind of strong. The shared sequencer stuff, there was there were just all these modular things, lots of tokens. There was everything, a lot of this, sort of infrastructure madness was kind of very strong in the VC and investor community. And there was a lot of energy around that. And concretely, we were we're going to launch DYDX. It's going to really show what this technology can do. USDC is going to come to the ecosystem. Native USDC. That's going to inject a lot, restore a lot of liquidity to the ecosystem.
This is replacing what Luna had sort of destroyed. Yeah. Because even though there were always stable coins, but they were bridged.
They were bridged from Axelar primarily.
Yeah.
People were starting to really engage with interoperability. I was frustrated with the IBC team because they were not really focused on modular. They were not focused on outside of Cosmos, all of that stuff. But, that was, and so, I helped co-found Hyperlane as a kind of IBC alternative in that era. And so, there had been a lot. So there's a lot of stuff coming to the ecosystem that was to be excited about, even if, there was less hope in my mind that would buy time for Atom to kind of figure itself out.
ICS also launched in 2023.
ICS launched in 2023.
And so at least you had that experiment in action.
Yeah. And the flaws of the ICS product became apparent pretty quickly.
Okay.
It became Neutron had a lot of halts and stuff like that. And that was clearly this idea of not having a very aligned validator set because the first version of ICS had to be opted in. And the other reality of the situation is that it became very clear that people were not willing to pay, projects were not willing to pay a lot of their tokens to use ICS. So Neutron provided ended up doing this airdrop to the community pool, which the hub can't figure out what to do with. And no one knows what to do with. Stride provides a 10% of their fees or something like that, some small percentage of their fees to the hub stakers, and people are it's all right, what is this, right? The excitement that would then, this was the first restaking thing, but then Eigenlayer starts their restaking process or their their contract that you could lock funds in.
On Ethereum.
And that becomes, $3, then $5, then $15 billion, right? And no one remembers this ICS thing.
Yeah. There's also I don't know when, but liquid staking on Cosmos.
Yeah. So I really pushed liquid staking on Cosmos, put years of work into.
That was earlier too. That was 2022.
That was 2022. I put years of work. I put basically a year of work in addition to all of my other things. I would be writing good code at 2 a.m. in the morning. I really believed that liquid staking could really transform Atom and make it something that would make sense and be useful and become part of the wider Cosmos ecosystem. And while I'm excited about Drop, which is a new liquid staking project on Cosmos, the 2023 liquid staking era was a big disappointment.
Moving into 2024. So actually, end of 2023, Celestia, DYDX, lots of excitement. People are excited. Early 2024, this year.
Yeah.
Still pretty.
So Celestia bull market is still running strong. That airdrop narrative with Atom had continued.
Although that's soured by March, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know when
Yeah,
or Starkware even. I think, and this is so it's a different ecosystem. This is more like the Ethereum side of things. So it moves over to Ethereum. Like the airdrops that are coming early 2024, they don't perform as well. But these are not Cosmos airdrops, but it's still like Celestia, and I think there might have been one or two others, but like it's still
so Celestia's airdrop to Atom holders did really well.
Yeah.
And people got really excited about it.
Totally, because it was unexpected and nobody really like could game it in the way that, I mean, I think there was this assumption like you should stake your atoms or you should stake osmosis maybe, but there was no like big game.
Yeah. The Celestia airdrop was well executed. The Celestial launch was well executed. Yeah. It was executed well in the same way that like Atoms, most exchange listed it. It had a strong narrative, strong team, all of this stuff, like really good.
But come the new year, there's these other airdrops in another ecosystem that sort of sour at least the spirit of airdrops. People get a little bit more annoyed. That sort of, I mean, in a way, it's the false activity gets called out and shown for what it is. But it also
are never a reason for an asset to exist.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be like, from my point of view, I think, what did people understand Cosmos assets as? So like, first, there was just this like, we don't really understand where the yield's coming from. We don't understand inflation. We don't understand unit bias. We don't understand any of this stuff. But we're like, the market's like, well, I just get more atoms in my wallet, and like I can do it from centralized exchanges and I can do all of this stuff. So it's like yield coin. All right. Then people got retrained as this is airdrop coin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you hold your asset because you might get airdrops.
You stake your atom, you hold it, you might get airdrops. None of these things are sustainable reasons for anything to be valuable or exist.
Yeah.
But those have been dominant narratives. And in general, as one would expect, those narratives have been running out of steam.
Mm-hmm. And they sort of managed to keep them going for a while by slightly altering the plan. But it was getting kind of into, I think the Ethereum airdrop story became more like there was just such a complex amount of activities that people are supposed to do. They kept sort of adding like, oh, it's not just hold it in this asset. Now you have to do something. You have to move it around like 5 times. You have to spend this much. You have to do that. And everyone, like a lot of people trying to guess what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. But on the builder side for Cosmos, the story started to become if you airdrop to Atom holders, all you do is get tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of sell pressure for your asset. That if you are lucky, reproducing the success Celestia had with their airdrop on the builder side. And so, more and more teams started asking the question, okay, if I want to airdrop within Cosmos, does it make sense to airdrop to Atom stakers? Do I want to look for users? Do I want to try and find other signs on chain that people are actually users? Because a big frustration that builders had within Cosmos is they would look at these numbers and every builder in Cosmos would look and say, okay, I see 300,000-400,000 accounts staking Atom. Great. I see 50,000-60,000 accounts swapping on Osmosis, on a month. Mm-hmm. My app has 100 users. How do I grow? Yeah. How do I do anything? And this was a problem that like every builder was having in Cosmos. And so people started there became a very strong misalignment between Atom stakers and like the staker community in Cosmos and the builder community in Cosmos.
Wow.
Which I think, again, has propagated as a problem because it's like, I want apps that I want like all of this stuff depends on apps. Mm-hmm. If apps have no users, like, why am I building in this ecosystem? And if all of these people who are staking, who appear real, like it's not just like, it's not one person with 400,000 accounts. There's like at least a few 100,000 people in this community. But if those people can't be engaged to engage with any apps, like, what do we do? Yeah.
This summer 2024, seems like one of the lowest points for Cosmos.
Yeah, we're at an inflection point.
Now we're recording this in September, but I feel like a month ago, 2 months ago, you just started to see kind of core people, like people in those teams that you've mentioned, say things like, I think it's dead. It's over. I think even like maybe you've tweeted something that suggested like it's over, which I think my team at ZKV like flagged being like, whoa, if Zaki thinks this.
So, I mean, I had this very famous tweet in
Okay.
2023 that Cosmos has 12 months.
Okay.
Okay, so it's March of 2023. And I was like, Cosmos has 12 months to figure this stuff out. Otherwise, we're screwed.
This is post Atom 2.0.
This is post Atom 2.0.
Okay. Were you
And
trying to prompt another Atom 2.0 movement? Like, were you trying to get another one?
I was trying to get people to understand there was this feel that there needs to be a view of crisis. Basically, what we had so like a year from that was March of 2024. March of 2024, Celestia was still looking pretty good. DYDX was growing very rapidly. Noble USDC has continued to grow rapidly. So again, if the ecosystem is dead, it's not, because like there's lots of metrics that continue to show a lot of volume and engagement and stuff like that with the ecosystem. But you're sitting there going, I foresaw a crisis. I saw that a crisis.
So it wasn't March 2024, but a little bit after that.
Yeah. So March 2024, the good stuff that had happened was kind of disguising the sense of crisis. Then weirdly, how we got here in the summer was, so in the spring, we found another IBC bug. It turned out not to affect most chains.
Okay.
It required a very particular set of IBC features, but it was, again, an emergent property of multiple teams not working on a coherent design, everyone adding little pieces. And when you put these pieces together, you had another vulnerability.
Wasn't Interchain GmbH supposed to be doing that, though? Weren't they sort of meant to be like the IBC center point?
Yes.
Okay.
But
No one can be the center point.
you had different users who wanted different things. Like one of the big problems that Cosmos has had is the teams were not very commercially oriented. They were all these very like researchy oriented teams funded out of the Interchain Foundation who were not, so you have this kind of division in Cosmos right now between teams that were very commercially oriented, Neutron, Skip, in some senses Strangelove, me, who were very commercially oriented, and then this like not very commercially oriented team. So like users of the tech were like, we are missing this feature. And frequently the attitude, like what you would get back from, I mean, again, this is just my perspective, but like on the whole, what you would frequently get back from like the Interchain GmbH team is like, yes, we will work on that in 2 years. Right. And everyone's like, yeah, that's not going to help. So I'm going to go find someone, Strangelove, another vendor to make it to like.
But that's kind of dangerous then too, right? Because that's when you get other teams adding.
Yeah.
And like maybe it won't be vetted as much and checked and.
Like in my mind, we like created an entire design that was supposed to mitigate this bug, like at a design level. And then that design was subverted because of incoherent design. So we get this bug. Again, it gets white-hatted. These wonderful people at Asymmetric Research who seem to be finding lots of Cosmos bugs, who seem great, like report the bug through our bug bounty process. Like we get this bug bounty, the chains get patched. Now, in June, somehow, well, we kind of know how. Sorry. This is like a lot of stress.
Oh no, this is still fresh.
Yeah. So in June, Terra
rears its head again.
Rears its head.
Oh no.
And Terra has reverted the fix.
Oh.
So they reintroduced the bug
that you guys had just fixed.
That
But just for the Terra.
Just for the Terra chain.
Okay.
But then Terra gets exploited for like $6 million.
Who's still on Terra though?
Some people.
Okay.
Mostly this project that was born out of Delphi, the investment and like research team called Astroport, which is a DEX that competes with Osmosis, is still on. And that has most of the funds. And so like literally I'm back in the Terra validator channel, patching Terra again, like I was in 2022. And I'm like, Sunny and I were like both in there in this like war room call to deal with the vulnerability. And we're just like, we're doing this again. Can't you just turn it off and not turn it back on?
Yeah.
Like, isn't this just like a good time to be done with the Terra blockchain because we've had to do this? Somehow, though, in the social consciousness of crypto, this vulnerability, which was like on the whole, a small exploit in.
But it involves a very sensitive topic.
Yes.
Terra.
And that,
not just like Terra for you, but also Terra, I think it triggers lots of people.
Yeah. And so
Terra broke again.
Something
Cosmos.
Something
IBC.
Something we don't really understand, but we were just like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here?
Okay.
And so this triggers this like just avalanche of like, there had been in Cosmos circles, negative sentiment kind of brewing for a long time, but it like this somehow escapes the bubble and like triggers this like outpouring of negative sentiment that has just been sort of with us
since then. The teams, going back to like who's still here in 2024, like where do they all stand? Osmosis. I mean, Osmosis has gone through lots, especially recently, like lots of like announcements for kind of new directions.
So Osmosis, the team has just been grinding on the core product
forever. Yeah.
Well,
since 2021.
But I've been a critic of Osmosis. I think Osmosis, like when we got to this rebirth of optimism in November, Osmosis did not show itself well. Osmosis went down during the Celestia airdrop. It like people who used a lot of Ethereum, people from outside of the ecosystem who got the Celestia airdrop, touched the Cosmos ecosystem for the first time, touched Osmosis, had a bad experience. What I would say is, so it's been about a year since then, Osmosis is now amazing. Yeah. Like Osmosis.
They got it back on track.
Osmosis is just like killing it from a product point of view. Like the product is just unbelievably good. Like it's as good as any deck. I mean, I use everything. I use Solana dexes. I use Cosmos. I use Ethereum. Really, the product is as good as anything out there.
Nice.
And the team has done such amazing work, and it contributed a lot of amazing work. They've fixed Comet BFT Tendermint bugs that I've been chasing for years. Just like amazing, fantastic work that has not been rewarded in any way, shape, or form in token price or users or anything. But it's there. It's still fucking amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Informal?
So Informal took over the responsibility in the beginning of 2023 for Comet BFT.
And Cosmos SDK?
No.
Oh, okay.
So they own Cosmos Hub. So the Cosmos Hub team is Informal. So like Yelena onboarded two teams, Stride and Neutron. Then
to ICS.
They announced, Yelena left, Informal executed, got them onboarded, launched them. They've been running for more than a year. There have been no new teams. The teams that Informal has talked to about onboarding have all came back with a litany of reasons why not to use it. Informal has dutifully worked on all of those problems. And so there is a version of ICS that is sort of about to launch that like fixes a bunch of obvious problems, but there is also absolutely very little reason to feel imminently excited about those product improvements. It seems it's like a huge lift to get from where we are today to something that would really get people excited about Atom and the Cosmos Hub through those product improvements.
What about Strangelove today?
So Strangelove is still a contributor to IBC. I don't know how, like their main thing right now is, so one of the things that's very exciting actually about Cosmos is, so one of the biggest Cosmos chains, it wasn't live, but they started building it before Cosmos Hub launched, is Thorchain.
Oh yeah. Is it also Tendermint?
Also Comet, Tendermint, everything. So Strangelove is actually involved in this like massive project. So Thorchain, while it was built with Comet BFT, was never integrated into the IBC network.
Yeah. I think of it as very separate.
It's very separate. Though it integrates with Atom, but nothing else on Cosmos. for their various products. And so Strangelove was actually involved in this massive project to turn Thorchain into like a Cosmos DeFi chain. So Thorchain will have CosmWasm. It'll be connected to IBC. It's like current product set and feature set. And, you know, JP, who is one of the, I guess, is the founder of Thorchain, who was Anon for many years. Though, you know, I met him in 2018. JP is like on a warpath, kind of launching products and building stuff, and is, you know, and like there was this Cosmos team called Kojiro, who were a Terra survivor, who sort of had a financial meltdown also this summer, who got bailed out by JP, and now he's trying to like merging Thorchain and this Kujira product, and you're getting this consolidation, which was very exciting.
Okay.
So, you know.
That's what Strangelove is doing. Binary, because they sort of entered. So
there was this team Regen who had been responsible for a lot of the Cosmos SDK work post AIB collapse. And I personally was very unsatisfied, and I think a number of other contributors were not super satisfied with Regen's work as leaders. And Marco, who started in Cosmos as a DevRels guy, took over as product lead, and frankly, quietly has made the Cosmos SDK like a state-of-the-art blockchain building toolkit and fixed numerous problems. But it's basically taken 18 months of really, really hard work from his team to like kind of turn Cosmos SDK into a truly state-of-the-art system.
Nice.
So like a lot of builders are very, like, this is what we see. Current generation of builders is super excited about the Cosmos SDK. You know, you have new projects that are like, we raised $100 million and we're going to go use the Cosmos SDK on a regular basis.
Who was it?
Story.
Yeah. Story. Okay.
Which I'm an advisor to.
Oh. And yet, this summer, we hear Cosmos is dead.
Yeah.
And when they say that, do they mean Cosmos Hub? Do they mean Cosmos ecosystem? Yeah. What does Cosmos is dead mean then? Why is Cosmos dead? Or is it dead?
So I think what people very specifically mean is I no longer associate this asset, Atom and Cosmos, with the success of the ecosystem in a like meaningful way. The fragmentation of the ecosystem now has reached the point where it's like, I realize that people will continue to be like, there will still be a Comet BFT. There will be a IBC, that IBC is the third largest bridging protocol by volume on DeFi Llama. But I no longer have any reason to believe that Atom will gain any value from this.
So it's not Cosmos is dead, it's Atom is dead.
Yeah, because anything else doesn't make any sense, right? Like, is Celestia dead? No, there's like new stuff launching on top of Celestia all the time. Is IBC dead? No, it's the third largest bridging protocol by volume.
Yeah.
Is the ecosystem dead? No, there's $270 million of USDC on Noble doing DeFi stuff. Is DYDX dead? No, it's the second largest perp DEX. Like, obviously Cosmos isn't dead. But what people are really saying is, where does the attention go? What is the core of the ecosystem? What are the things to be excited about? And this thing that like, where its primary property was its decentralization, that was many people viewed as which was to a lot of people the core of the ecosystem.
And the great part.
Yeah, there's nothing to be excited about.
Or its own decentralization made it hard to have that central leadership.
Yeah, and so like, you know, one of the problems that I think, and we could get to like, I mean, it's probably a good time to kind of analyze how did we get here. One of the reasons I think that we really got here was, so All in Bits, the organization that we all worked at when we created Cosmos, shambles. Interchain Foundation has gone through many iterations of turnover, of core people, of leadership, is now off on a search for an executive director again. Is doing stuff. There are talented people who work there. I'm not trying to like, you know, be negative about everybody, but it's been a deeply, there's also a governance proposal right now to like audit the ICF or to convince the Swiss to audit the ICF, which I don't know exactly what the theory of like why the Swiss government cares about governance proposals on the Cosmos Hub, but maybe they do. But also, who knows if it will pass? I'm not bullish this like auditing process. But
there's a sentiment of like anger towards the ICF.
There's a sentiment of anger towards the ICF.
Yeah.
That you see in the community.
That's the foundation. This is
this
the thing that gives out grants.
Yeah.
This is the thing that, like, this is separate also from the community hub.
It doesn't really give out grants. It funds these various fragmented development organizations.
Okay.
So
it used to do grants. Years ago, I also was kind of part of the ICF during that small window of time when they were doing grants.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's different from the hub, which is like more community chosen. It has, I mean, I think this year there was a huge rearrange. Like last year, Billy, Sam left, right?
Yeah.
It was 2023.
Yep.
This year, Brian leaves.
left.
I don't know who else leaves, but it seemed like there was another big shift.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a lot of frustration that the ICF, this non-commercial nature of the ICF, and that its delegation of commercial, Informal is its own commercial business. Strangelove is its own commercial business. I left everything to do with the ICF at the beginning of 2023. I have nothing to do with it. Don't get any grants. Don't take any money. I have like no connection to it. I just was like, this leadership is a mess. I don't want anything to do with it.
I think I was there in 2021.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So 2023, I finally disassociated myself and just was like, nope, I'm doing my own thing. So this frustration with the non-commercial nature of it, where it's like, what is our goal? What are our metrics? What purpose are we serving? Our job right now is just to shovel money out the door at some rate, and not spend the entire treasury on one thing. Every other foundation in crypto that's well run has some set of commercial goals or objectives, some goals around adoption, some goals around use, some goals around distribution of the technology, et cetera. And the ICF has never had any of that. And so this lack of commercially oriented leadership at the ICF has been a source of great frustration.
But don't all the foundations have that exact thing though? Like they're all meant to be nonprofit. They're not supposed to be super financially driven. I mean, EF.
Yeah, but then
Near Foundation, Solana Foundation. I guess Solana Foundation is the exception, right?
What we're seeing right now is Solana running the Solana Foundation being far more attuned to the commercial needs of the ecosystem and just doing a really good job. Like people come into Solana, they want to accomplish something, they will get help from the Solana Foundation. There will be people at the Solana Foundation who will help them. The Solana Foundation will have an opinion. They will say, these initiatives are important. These initiatives are not important. There isn't this effort to please everyone. And it has shown, I think, really positive effects.
Is it the only foundation that has such a strong showing so far? Because EF is currently and has been over the years lambasted for paying too much or not paying enough or hiring too many people or firing too many people.
The EF, in my mind, is not very commercially oriented, but pulled off such an astounding engineering feat with the merge and proof of stake and all of this stuff, which is just unbelievable that they were able to pull something like that off. But the fact that there has been very little commercial reward for that accomplishment, this is the challenge that you have with crypto, right? You set some engineering goal. The engineering goal is really hard. You go do it. And sometimes there's no commercial reward on any time horizon. But also sometimes the commercial rewards for those engineering goals can be delayed by months or years.
Sometimes you have people, though, be kind of pleasantly surprised that they get a retroactive or whatever. Yeah. It's a weird space that way, but it makes it hard, at the beginning, to commit, I guess. Although I think, why have people committed in the past? I think it's because there was an assumption that there would be something at the end of that tunnel, right?
Yeah, that something would work out.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of things, something works out. We're coming into almost basically, a year plus of flat ETH price, Solana going up, but then flattening out. Like things have been just like, no one feels super rewarded for all of the hard work.
And that goes beyond Cosmos then.
That goes beyond Cosmos. The problems of Cosmos are to the rest of the ecosystem as well. I'll just cover like a third thing, and then loop back, which is there's AIB, there's ICF, and then there's the validators.
Okay.
And in many ways, the sort of weakness of AIB and the weakness of ICF and the way the builders of Cosmos conceived of it is like, we are turning this thing over to the validators. But from the Atom 2.0 era onward, any sort of clear, this is where we want this thing to go, this is what we should do from the validators, they've never viewed it as their responsibility, but at the same time, there was no one else, and they had the power. They had the power to reject everything. And so everybody has put so much time and energy trying to make incremental changes. Oh, let's fund AA DAO. Let's incrementally improve. Let's, constantly test the waters with the validators, because if we try to go too fast, what we learned from Atom 2.0 is the validators will just say no. But that was too, slow enough that the validators would accept is at this moment too slow,
save the
for them to save the market.
In a way. It's funny. So as mentioned, as a validator, especially during that era where those votes were coming in, we were like one of the few independent ones in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like it really looked like it was exchange, VC, strange, like kind of company game thingy. Like it was very
strange, weird Japanese investment vehicle
that
no one really understands.
And then and I remember like we took a lot of those governance decisions, especially the contentious ones, very seriously, and we would have big conversations trying to figure out what to do there.
The builders always viewed that ZK validator vote as like one of the most reliable allies. And with you guys gone, we're just, we actually don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. ZKV in the last month or so has, it's no longer in the top 10. We're still in the set, but we don't have the same backing that we used to. And felt when it changed as like a bit of an end of an era, because we'd been up there for about 5 years almost. But I do wonder, like, who are the people? Because even if you look at the bigger VCs who had been there, even VCs that could have been friendly, they've been selling off.
Yep.
Like you don't see the Paradigm or the Polychain anymore.
The Polychains, they're mostly gone. There still are. I mean, there's a lot of token, like Coinbase Custody is the biggest validator,
but they never vote on anything.
They don't ever vote anything, and it would be great if they would, because it's just like retail and retail users on Coinbase, right? But like they don't get any voting rights or anything, which is just really frustrating. We've tried. Yeah.
Okay, so now this brings us to today.
Yeah.
Atom is dead. Cosmos is not dead, but in a funny situation. The ICF is looking for new leadership. And yet we hear little murmurings of proposals, ideas. One of them's public, which is this osmosis merger.
So one thing that has been sort of, is not in the form of a serious proposal, but there is this idea of merge Atom and osmosis in some fashion that has been out there. And as I have said, I've been very, very positive about the product progress that osmosis has made and been very conscious of the complete lack of price action on Osmo, right? I think that another frustrating thing for crypto builders in this last year, not just in Cosmos, but just in general, right, is that product progress is very rarely rewarded with token activity. There's a few examples where people have been able to make both the token and the product work, but you are very hamstrung by the market realities these days.
Although, 2019, I feel like you had a similar thing over on Ethereum.
Yeah.
I remember tools were getting better, 2019, 2020, and no one was using them. Yep. The things that had been blowing up in 2017, 2018, all of a sudden worked, but everyone was gone. Yeah. So you couldn't battle, and they were all meant to scale, but no one was pushing their limits at all.
And the same thing happened in Solana, I think, in 2023, right? 2023 was Solana tech improved dramatically, but there were no users. And then users came. So we've been through cycles like this before. I'm not, it feels like 2019 in that sense of nobody's like, where's the light on the end of the tunnel on the tokens? Or like, do we have to, I think, Sommelier, for instance, has just like committed itself. We're going to focus on revenue because like, who knows whether or not we can make the token work or whether or not the token will ever work. Christy, my co-founder, had put out this like very nice op-ed about just like, okay, like can't control token.
Can control revenue.
Can control revenue, can grow revenue. Let's go focus on revenue.
Okay, but the proposals. So there's an osmosis atom, like an Osmo atom.
There's like a soft Osmo atom merge proposal that is out there.
But you think it's not super serious? I wonder if it's worth it to explore, or if you think...
What I would say is the dynamics are very clear, which is Osmo is now a great product, and Osmo is very much the entry point for people into the ecosystem. It is the most widely used thing. It has the most daily active users.
Although from centralized exchanges, it's still Atom, right? Or is it more like ETH into Osmo?
So like one of the things, another form of fragmentation that has occurred is there are multiple front doors to Cosmos.
Okay.
Now. So Noble is a front door because it has USDC from Coinbase, which is the only centralized exchange that supports, hopefully more soon. But we integrated this thing called CCTP, which is a bridging protocol that is native to USDC. And that has provided, like you can go Solana Noble in under like a second, right? So
it's a new on-ramp.
So that's a new on-ramp.
Okay.
And then you have Osmosis has gotten Binance and multiple other exchanges to list
direct.
Osmo.
Okay.
So there are multiple entry points now into the ecosystem. And TIA is another entry point into the ecosystem. So now you have all these multiple entry points to the ecosystem, but they all meet like a good 30-40% of the USDC is on Osmosis. A good, there's TIA volume, there's Atom volume, a lot of this stuff happens on Osmosis. So Osmosis is, for users of the ecosystem, very much now
a hub.
A hub.
I feel like it has been for a while, but maybe more so now?
More so now.
Okay.
Because before Osmo was
Step 2.
Was DeFi.
Okay.
But it wasn't like where all of the different on-ramps met. But now you have TIA, Atom, Noble, all of them meeting in Osmosis. Osmosis is much more... And the Osmosis is a much better product now. The UX is much better. Like the functionality of the DEX is contemporary to like other DEXs in the ecosystem. So all of that stuff is happening.
What would a merger look like?
I mean, in my mind, I tweeted this.
How does that even work?
So there would be the mechanics of it, where there have been very few mergers in crypto. So the big recent one was this merger of Fetch and Ocean Protocol, and I think a third protocol. Fetch is actually a Cosmos chain to this AGI asset, where they you had like three things that have all pumped because of sort of AI, the AI bubble, that have merged. So there was that merging process.
You and I were talking just the other day about like the new cipher plus Keep. Equals Threshold.
Yeah, it became Threshold
from a few years ago.
And that's also happened.
Yeah.
So that merger has occurred. Very few mergers have happened. One thing though that is a problem that I think Cosmos and all the other ecosystems are now having is everyone's incentives are new token, new token, new token. You have get this what I call fractalization of incentives, where everyone has their own like token with their own ecosystem, which is their own thing. So and you have so many of those like in Cosmos. You have like Initia, you have Celestia, then you have Initia, then you have Astria, then you have
Stargaze.
Then you have thing after thing after thing after thing, which is all producing their own ecosystems around them.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, like what are the incentives anymore? Now, consolidation has to be the way that we put all of these incentives back together.
Yeah. I mean, I even remember when every project you talk to, I mean, it's still kind of the case, is about to launch a token, and you have to ask yourself, like, how many of these things are we going to hold on to?
This is what everyone is. This is the general despair in the ecosystem in Q3 of 2024, which is like you have a lot of the things that launched in this sort of period of that where things were looking good, October, November, December of 2023. Now they're 1 year past TGE, vesting unlocks start happening. So there's a huge amount of supply of different tokens coming into the market. And then everyone who thought they were going to launch in June, July, were like, oh, market's looking bad. I'm going to delay.
Are stuck now.
Are now, eigenlayer tokens are going to become liquid, tradable. Like all of these tokens suddenly. So now you have this like another massive wave of tokens into a market that has just like, there's no buy side.
Whoa.
So, it's a painful time, not just for Cosmos.
That idea of merging tokens, I mean, I think this proposal is Osmo, like Atom, may or may not make sense. But I think that generally that's a kind of good idea. Or like, has anyone like absorbed tokens? Like, could one stronger token absorb another one?
So I mean,
I think Polygon did that a little bit with like the Hermes tokens.
I mean, somebody could write a thing that would, like, for instance, like allow people to deposit Osmo and get vesting Atom of some kind in like some module. Like, you could build this. Like, someone could build a Cosmos merger smart contract module, whatever, to like do this. Like, and I suspect someone will eventually. Like,
so you would have, though, osmosis sort of like give itself over to the Atom.
But what I would, in my version of this, the only version of this makes sense is like the entire Atom product roadmap of today, which is this ICS product roadmap, is abandoned. The hub product is the osmosis product. The hub asset is Atom.
But you'd have to, how would you possibly do that? You'd need the buy-in from the validators, I guess.
You would need the validators to say.
And now no one
knows.
No independent is on is like up there, I guess.
So yeah, we don't, but, so you don't know.
Wow.
But like, yeah, and not only you would need the osmosis validators and the hub validators to agree. And and these things are hard. It is manifested. But this is just one of many plans that exist in some way.
Can you share any others?
So,
or hint at?
I can hint at things. So Skip has a plan. I think we'll see when this comes out, whether or not this thing has leaked onto Twitter, but I'm not going to be the one to leak it.
If so, I think listeners should check your Twitter when this comes out and see if you've retweeted anything around a Skip proposal for the future of Atom.
The more commercially oriented teams. So I would view Osmosis as a commercially oriented team. I would view Skip as a commercially oriented team. They would say that there's like such demand for like what Cosmos makes, which is like inability to build your own sovereign chain. Now, it's really unclear exactly what a hub asset should do in that world, because sovereignty is like all about doing your own thing. Why do I need?
Why wouldn't it just follow like the Uniswap model, though, if it is sort of like DeFi? I guess you don't think of it as that anymore.
No.
Now it's a center.
So what I would say is like the demand for sovereignty is huge. Again, like all of these problems with Cosmos and like Story, Barachain, all of these people are building with Cosmos tech. Babylon, a lot of the things that are like late this year, early next year that people are actually excited about, in spite of like this massive supply of tokens and everything, the stuff people are actually excited about, so many of them are built with Cosmos tech. And, so many of them are, I'm an investor advisor or whatnot. Like I've been very much like, I shifted out of Cosmos Core and I put all my energy into like the more commercially oriented stuff, which has been a struggle making it work. Like it would have just been far easier to build infrastructure and live off the ICF. But like I like threw myself, like both me and Christy like threw ourselves into this vortex of trying to like make commercially oriented things work in Cosmos, because we were like, the ecosystem will die without more commercially oriented stuff. So we worked on Celestia, we worked on Babylon Chain, we worked on Barachain, like very, very commercial teams.
Last question, because I know we're almost at time. So you've talked about some of the proposals for how to kind of save Atom or Cosmos. I mean, Cosmos isn't dead from what I'm hearing, but it's not booming.
No.
And Atom is somewhat dying. Like there's like people selling. There's people undelegating. I mean, we saw that. But so far you shared like a few, there's some proposals to fix it or turn around. So there's still like a desire to do that. But my actual last question is like, when would Cosmos actually be dead? What would it be? What does that picture look like?
So the picture of Cosmos being dead, okay, so like another sort of meme out there is the cosmosification of the rest of crypto.
Okay.
So Solana, the new buzzword, is network extensions.
Which is Cosmos.
Which are sovereign chains that extend the Solana network.
Bit like rollups?
They're bit-like rollups,
Okay.
they're bit-like Cosmos chains,
Okay.
whatever you want. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have not read a formal definition of what a network extension is. It's just branding that is different from L2s.
Okay.
Then people are like, the cosmosification of Ethereum, like ETH is the new Atom, like meme is out there, right? Ethereum does feel like Cosmos now. It's like you have this fractalization of incentives where everyone has a different L2, everyone has a different token. The core devs get sucked up and are, you know, scattered across multiple L2s.
Oh, yeah.
Ethereum Foundation is not, you know,
The AVSs are going to do more of that even.
you have core Ethereum Foundation people doing like eigenlayer advisory and like all of this other stuff. And like the revenue, you know, like the funniest thing is like, you know, there are so many people who were pushing this like Atom as gas as the solution to Atom's problems. And you see that Ethereum adds like the tiniest little bit of scalability and like protocol fees drop to like nothing. Right. So what would the death of Cosmos really look like? It's probably that the Cosmos idea doesn't go away, because I do think Cosmos as a mechanism of giving developers sovereignty, this ability of like, or like the idea that developers want sovereignty. The developers are not going to just accept that the choices have already been made for them. You must build with the EVM. You must build with the SVM. You must launch on top of the Solana network with the Solana consensus. You must pay your MEV to the Ethereum validators or Solana validators. You must do it in this prescribed way, and there are no other options. Will never be the way that the most ambitious builders want to build. And
So the dream, you don't think will die?
the dream will not die, but the death of Cosmos is people no longer use Comet BFT, IBC, Cosmos SDK for doing this. There are no more stories or bear chains or you know, Celestias or anything. There's no future pipeline of all of that.
And I guess the teams that you mention close up shop, or they shift, they start working on other things.
Yeah.
But currently it doesn't look like that's the case.
We're not there yet.
Okay. Do you have another time frame? Another timeline? Do you have a
We have another
12-month, 6-month, 3 months?
I mean, I do think that the ecosystems, what the biggest question is Atom relevant to the future at all? I think at this moment. And I think there may or may not even get to be a decision point for this, I think is the question. Like, you know, it may be that just, again, the more commercially oriented teams in the ecosystem just decide that they want to build something outside of the framework of the ICF and are just like, let us move on. And then it may be more of a individual decision among Atom holders. It's like, do I stick with the legacy stuff or do I move on? But I think the question is like the ecosystem needs to be at a really fundamental level restructured and consolidated, and new incentive patterns need to be created in a much like Atom 2.0 way. But I do think that the appetite among builders to ask the validators now is pretty low. They may get one more chance. They may get one more ask. And it's like, but will be a very like, take it or leave it. And if leave it is the answer, here's our very established plan of being done with it.
Whoa.
I think people will be surprised at the willingness to do something big.
Cool. On that note, Zaki, thanks for this epic journey back in time to the beginning of Cosmos all the way to today. Some sort of hints at what might be coming. And I mean, I think there's lessons to be learned for kind of anyone in the space from also stories of the Cosmos.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really cool.
I mean, people like, you know, like Chain Yoda, like tweet always about like learn from Cosmos because you are all walking down this path. But
Also learn from Polkadot, but
yeah. But like, I'm not good at like writing all this stuff out. So it was a really good opportunity to like embed all of my experience and learnings and trauma into a single podcast that will hopefully, you know, the AI can like learn from.
Nice. Thanks, Zaki. I want to say thank you to the podcast team, Rachel, Henrik, and Tanya, and to our listeners. Thanks for listening.